The Cabernet splashed across my chest like a baptism in fire, staining my white blouse crimson as the dining room fell into a hush thicker than the summer humidity clinging to the Carolina pines outside. Evelyn's mother's hand trembled not from remorse but from the venom she'd finally unleashed, her eyes narrowing into slits of inherited bigotry that had simmered beneath the veneer of Southern hospitality all evening. I froze, the cool liquid seeping into my skin. A stark reminder that love could invite you to the table, but hatred would always find a way to spill over. That moment etched itself into me like the humid air pressing against the windows of the old Montgomery farmhouse, heavy with the scent of magnolias and unspoken sins. It was Thanksgiving, or what passed for it in Evelyn's fractured family, a gathering meant to mend the rifts Evelyn had spent years trying to bridge. I had come as her partner, her anchor, the woman who had coaxed her out of the shadows of doubt and into the light of their shared apartment in Portland, where rain-washed streets promised anonymity and renewal. But here, in the heart of North Carolina's tobacco country, where the soil ran red with history's blood, I was an intruder, my black skin a canvas for their unexamined prejudices. Evelyn's voice cut through the silence first, not with a scream but with a steadiness that belied the storm I knew raged inside her. "Mother," she said, rising from her chair with the grace of someone who had rehearsed this fracture 1,000 times in her mind, "if you can't see Riley for the woman she is, the one who has given me more grace than you've ever offered, then you've lost us both." The words hung in the air, slicing through the clink of silverware abandoned mid-air. The gasp from Evelyn's aunt across the table, the way her father's face crumpled like wet paper. Lydia Montgomery, with her pearls clutched like a talisman against the changing world, said nothing. She simply turned and swept from the room, the screen door slamming behind her like the final punctuation on a sentence none of us wanted to finish. I remember the way the wine dripped from my chin onto the lace tablecloth, pooling in dark rivulets that mirrored the tears I refused to let fall. Evelyn was at my side in an instant, her hands, cool and callous from years of tending her family's forgotten garden, peeling away the soaked fabric with a tenderness that made the humiliation recede just enough to breathe. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her blue eyes, the color of faded denim, locking onto mine with an apology that carried the weight of her entire lineage. We were both 28 then, young enough to believe love could rewrite bloodlines, but old enough to know the cost of trying. The drive back to the airport that night was a blur of taillights and tangled fingers on the gearshift. Evelyn had insisted we leave immediately, bundling me into her old pickup truck with a quilt from her childhood bed wrapped around my shoulders. The radio hummed low with some country ballad about lost highways, but neither of us spoke. The road unspooled like a vein through the dark countryside, past fields silvered by moonlight where cotton ghosts whispered secrets of endurance. I leaned my head against the window, the glass fogging with my breath, and wondered if this was the beginning of the end, the moment when her world's ugliness would eclipse the quiet beauty we'd built together. Portland greeted us with its familiar drizzle the next morning, a soft veil that washed away the south's sticky residue but not the ache lodged in my chest. Our apartment in the Pearl District overlooked the Willamette, its waters a constant murmur of flux, much like the thoughts churning in my mind as I unpacked. Evelyn hovered, brewing coffee strong enough to rival the bitterness I felt, her movements deliberate, as if piecing together a mosaic from shards. "She didn't mean it," she said finally, sliding a mug across the counter, steam curling like question marks between us. But I knew better. Intent or not, the act was a declaration, a line drawn in spilled Merlot. In the days that followed, The wound festered quietly. I threw myself into my work at the community center, teaching art classes to kids from the city's edges, little ones with eyes like polished onyx, dreaming of canvases beyond concrete. Their laughter was a balm, their small hands smudged with charcoal a reminder that creation could bloom from ruin. Yet at night, when Evelyn's arm draped over me in sleep, I lay awake tracing the constellations of freckles on her shoulder, wondering if I was strong enough to carry the weight of her family's shadows. Started small. The cracks. A hesitation in her touch. A glance averted when I mentioned my mother's stories of Jim Crow Sundays in rural Georgia, tales I'd shared to weave our histories together, not divide them. Evelyn listened, her face a mask of empathy, but I saw the flicker, the way her jaw tightened like kudzu vines strangling an oak. "I know it's not the same," she'd say, her voice soft as marsh grass, "but I choose you every day." And I believed her. Because what else was there? Love, in its truest form, is a choice repeated in the quiet hours. A lighthouse beam cutting through fog. But the fog thickened. One evening, as autumn leaves turned the streets to fire, Evelyn came home late from a call with her mother. Lydia had been leaving voicemails, apologies wrapped in caveats, pleas for reconciliation laced with barbs about urban influences corrupting her daughter. I found Evelyn on the balcony, staring at the river's bend, a cigarette burning forgotten between her fingers. She smoked only when the past clawed too close, a habit from college days when she'd fled this very town for the anonymity of art school in Seattle. "Riley," she started, turning to me with eyes rimmed red. "She wants us to come back. Says she was wrong. That the wine was just." Frustration boiling over. Her words trailed into the dusk, and I felt the old hurt rise like bile. Frustration. As if my existence were a minor inconvenience. A spill to mop up with a napkin and a mumbled sorry. I crossed the threshold, the cool metal railing biting into my palms. "And you? What do you want?" The question hung between us, fragile as the spiderwebs lacing the fire escape. Evelyn stepped closer, her scent of lavender and engine oil enveloping me, and for a moment, I thought she might bridge the gap. But then her shoulders sagged, and she whispered, "I want my family whole. But not at your expense." Never that. We made love that night with a desperation born of fracture, slow, searching touches that mapped the terrain of what we feared losing. Her lips on my collarbone, tracing the faint scar from childhood falls, my fingers threading through her sun-bleached hair, pulling her closer to the rhythm of our shared breath. In the afterglow, tangled in sheets that smelled of salt and rain, I confessed the fear that had taken root, that her mother's poison might seep into us, turning love to resentment. Evelyn held me then, her heartbeat a steady drum against my ear. "We're not them," she murmured, her voice a vow etched in the dark. "We're the light they couldn't see," and in that promise, I glimpsed the path forward, not erasure, but excavation, digging through the layers of pain to unearth something resilient. Yet resilience is not linear. It twists like the roots of the ancient live oaks back in North Carolina, gnarled and unyielding. The holidays came and went in Portland's muted palette, strings of lights twinkling against evergreens, the air crisp with pine and possibility. We hosted a small gathering with friends from the center, Jamal with his booming laugh and sketches of city skylines, Lena sketching portraits by candlelight. Their presence was a chorus against the silence Evelyn's family imposed. No invitations forthcoming. No bridges extended. One afternoon, as snow dusted the bridges like powdered sugar, I found an old photo album in a thrift shop bin, faded images of black families picnicking by lazy rivers, women in sundresses laughing under willow branches. It reminded me of Mama's stories, and I bought it, tucking it under the tree for Evelyn. When she unwrapped it on Christmas Eve, her fingers tracing the sepia tones, tears welled unbidden. "This is us," she said, pulling me onto the rug by the fire. The stories they tried to bury, but couldn't. That night, as flames danced shadows across the walls, we talked not of wounds, but of healing. Evelyn spoke of her childhood, the way her mother's Bible verses twisted into justifications for keeping our kind separate, the quiet rebellion she'd nursed in stolen library books about civil rights marches. I shared the armor I'd forged in Portland's diverse sprawl, where being black and queer was a banner, not a burden. Our words wove a tapestry, threads of vulnerability pulling tight. But the call came on New Year's, shattering the fragile peace. Lydia's voice on speaker, frail with illness, a fall down the porch steps, a hip fracture that pinned her to bed. Evelyn's face drained of color, her hand clutching mine like a lifeline. "She needs me," she said. Not a question but a plea. And I nodded, because love demands sacrifice, even when it stings like salt in an open cut. We flew back to North Carolina under steel gray skies, the plane dipping through clouds that mirrored my unease. The farmhouse loomed as we approached, its wraparound porch sagging under ivy like unhealed regrets. Evelyn's father greeted us at the door, his embrace awkward but genuine, eyes avoiding the wine stains ghost on my memory. Inside, the air was thick with liniment and unspoken apologies. Lydia propped in her recliner, her face a map of lines etched deeper by pain. She looked at me then, really looked, for the first time since that night. "Riley," she rasped, extending a hand veined like river deltas. I took it, the skin paper thin, and felt the tremor not of rage, but of a woman confronting her own unraveling. Evelyn hovered, a bridge between us, her presence a quiet insistence on grace. In the days that blurred into a rhythm of caregiving, spooning broth, folding linens, walks in the frost-kissed garden, I began to see the woman behind the prejudice. Lydia's stories emerged in fragments, a girlhood in segregated schools, a marriage built on silences, a fear of the world shifting beneath her feet. Not excuses, but explanations, humanizing the monster I'd cast her as. One evening, as dusk painted the fields gold, she asked about Portland, about the life Evelyn and I had carved. I spoke of the river's bend, of art blooming in unlikely places, and for the first time, her eyes softened, reflecting a flicker of curiosity. Evelyn watched us, her relief palpable, but I saw the cost the way she mediated, her heart a battlefield of loyalties. Nights in the guest room, we'd lie awake, her head on my chest, whispering fears. "What if forgiveness means forgetting?" she'd murmur. And I'd trace the curve of her ear, replying, "It means remembering, but choosing mercy anyway." Spring crept in with dogwood blossoms unfurling like hesitant promises, and Lydia's strength returned in measured steps. Physical therapy sessions became confessionals, her walker a prop for leaning into truths long buried. One afternoon, Under the arbor where wisteria draped like lavender veils, she pulled me aside. "I was wrong," she said, voice cracking like dry earth after rain. "Not just the wine, the years of blindness. You make her shine, Riley. Brighter than I ever could." Tears came then, mutual and unashamed, watering the soil of something new. Evelyn found us there, arms entwined, and joined the circle, her laughter a melody breaking the tension. In that moment, forgiveness wasn't a grand gesture but a quiet blooming, roots delving deep into shared soil. Yet healing is not without its thorns. Doubts lingered, shadows cast by the event's echo. Back in Portland, as cherry blossoms rained petals onto the streets, Evelyn withdrew into her sketches, charcoal renderings of fractured tables, spilled liquids morphing into rivers of redemption. I recognized the turmoil, the artist's way of processing what words couldn't touch. One rainy Saturday, we drove to the coast, the Pacific's roar a counterpoint to our silence. Seagulls wheeled above basalt cliffs, their cries sharp as unresolved questions. We walked the shore, bare feet sinking into wet sand, the tide pulling at our ankles like insistent memories. "I almost lost you," Evelyn said suddenly, stopping to face me, wind whipping her hair into wild halos. "That night, I saw it in your eyes, the crack I put there." I cupped her face, thumbs brushing away salt from the spray. "Or were they tears? You didn't put it there. Her ignorance did. But you sealed it with your voice." We kissed then, fierce and salt-laced, the ocean witnessing our reclamation. In the waves' retreat, I felt the scar tissue strengthen, a testament to survival. Summer brought festivals, pride in all its rainbow riot, where we marched hand in hand, banners fluttering like freed spirits. Evelyn's art show followed, her pieces a gallery of light-piercing darkness, a woman rising from crimson pools, transformed into fields of wildflowers. Lydia sent a card, her script shaky but sincere, enclosing a check for the framing, from one who spilled to one who creates. We visited again that fall, the air crisp with leaf turn, the farmhouse aglow with lanterns strung like stars. Dinner was simple: roast chicken, cornbread steaming, no wine in sight. Laughter flowed freer, stories overlapping like quilt patches. As we cleared plates, Lydia raised her glass of sweet tea. "To family," she said, eyes meeting mine across the table. "Wherever it finds us." Evelyn's hand found mine under the cloth, squeezing with the weight of what we'd forged. Outside, fireflies pulsed in the meadow, tiny beacons in the gathering dusk, a symphony of light after long night. The fireflies lingered in my mind long after we returned to Portland, their glow a fragile lantern against the encroaching chill of autumn's end. Evelyn and I settled into a rhythm that felt earned, like the slow unfurling of ferns after winter's grip. Mornings began with coffee on the balcony, watching barges slice the Willamette's silver surface, their wakes rippling outward in patterns of persistence. She would sketch while I read, our silences companionable, threaded with the unspoken gratitude of endurance. But fractures, once mended, bear the memory of breaking. It surfaced in subtle ways, a flinch when Evelyn's phone buzzed with her mother's name, a hesitation in my laughter at family anecdotes that skirted too close to old wounds. One evening, as rain pattered against the loft's skylight like impatient fingers, We attempted a recipe from Lydia's handwritten card. Pecan pie. Sticky sweet with notes of bourbon and nostalgia. The kitchen filled with the aroma of caramelizing sugar. A domestic alchemy meant to sweeten the past. Evelyn measured flour with precision, her brow furrowed in concentration. While I chopped nuts, the blades thunk a steady heartbeat. She used to make this for Daddy's birthday, she said. Voice light but laced with undercurrent. Said it was the only way to his heart. I nodded, forcing a smile. But the image conjured unbidden. That same kitchen in North Carolina. Flour-dusted hands now stained with judgment. The pie emerged golden. Crust flaky as autumn leaves. But when we cut into it, the filling oozed too hot, scalding my tongue. I winced. And Evelyn was there. Napkin to my lips. Her touch a reflex of care. Too much like life, I joked weakly. But the burn lingered. A metaphor too on the nose. That night, as we lay entwined, her breath warm against my neck, I voiced the shadow. Do you ever wonder if we're just papering over cracks? If one more spill could wash it all away? She propped on an elbow, moonlight carving hollows in her cheeks. Every day. But then I remember your strength, the way you didn't shatter that night. You taught me resilience. Riley. We're not paper, we're oak. Her words wrapped around me like kudzu in bloom. But doubt's roots ran deep, whispering of inevitable storms. Winter arrived with a vengeance. Snow blanketing the city in hush, turning familiar streets into dreamscapes of white. The community center buzzed with holiday workshops, children molding clay into symbols of hope, their small faces alight with creation's magic. I threw myself into it, finding solace in their unscarred wonder. But Evelyn grew quieter, her sketches turning abstract, swirling vortices of red and blue, figures reaching but never quite touching. It culminated on a sleet-lashed January night, when a package arrived from North Carolina, Lydia's embroidery hoop, threads of silk in shades of dawn, a river bending toward sunrise, embroidered with our initials intertwined. A note fluttered out. For the bend in your story. With love. From one who learned to turn. Evelyn traced the stitches, tears tracing paths down her face. And I held her as sobs shook loose the dam. Why now? She choked. After everything? And I realized the depth of her ache, not just for the mother she'd lost to prejudice, but for the girl who'd internalized the silence. We talked until dawn, unraveling the threads. Her childhood Sundays in stiff dresses, Bible studies laced with exclusion, the first time she'd kissed a girl behind the tobacco barn, heart pounding with forbidden thrill. I shared my own ghosts, Portland's underbelly of microaggressions, the lover before Evelyn who'd fled when family pressures mounted. In that vigil, vulnerability became our mortar, binding what rage had loosened. Healing isn't linear, I said, echoing words from a therapy session I'd started in secret. It's a spiral, circling back but ascending. Evelyn nodded, her hand finding mine. And we vowed to spiral together, therapy appointments scheduled, books on intergenerational trauma stacked by the bed. Spring's thaw brought green shoots piercing concrete, mirroring our tentative growth. We planted a window box, basil and lavender, scents of renewal mingling with rain. Evelyn's next show was in a gallery overlooking the river, titled Spills and Stitches. Critics praised the emotional depth. But for us, it was catharsis, viewers lingering before canvases that captured the poor, the hush, the quiet reclamation. Lydia visited that May. Her first trip west. Arriving on a flight that landed in a downpour. We met her at the gate. Evelyn's arm linked through mine. A united front. The drive home was tentative chatter, weather, pie recipes, the miracle of cherry blossoms defying frost. At the apartment, Lydia's eyes widened at the view. The river's ceaseless flow, a sermon in motion. Dinner was takeout from a soul food spot, collards simmered slow. Cornbread golden as her pecan pie. Over plates. Stories flowed. My mother's migration from Georgia. Evelyn's hidden sketches from high school. Lydia listened. Her nods slow. Absorbing. When the meal ended, she reached for my hand. I see now, she said. Voice rough as unsanded wood. The light you bring. Forgive an old fool for dimming it. Tears pricked. But they were cleansing. Like spring freshets carving new paths. Evelyn beamed. Her joy a bridge spanning divides. That night, as Lydia slept in the guest room, Evelyn and I slipped out to the balcony. City lights twinkling below like 1,000 fireflies. We're doing it, she whispered. Forehead to mine. Turning the bend. Yet the spiral looped again that summer. When a letter arrived, Evelyn's father. Ill with the cancer that had shadowed his stoic frame. We returned south. The highway a ribbon of resolve through Virginia's rolling hills. The farmhouse felt less like a cage. More like a chapter house. Walls echoing with tentative warmth. Caregiving became a trinity. Evelyn's gentle hands. My steady presence. Lydia's stories spun into lullabies against pain. In the meadow. Under July's lazy sun. Fireflies returned early. Pulsing like heartbeats in the grass. We sat there one twilight. The four of us, Lydia frail but fierce. Her husband dozing in a lawn chair, watching the lights dance. Like stars fallen to earth, Lydia murmured. And I squeezed Evelyn's hand, feeling the constellation we'd become. His passing came soft as autumn's first leaf fall. A quiet exit under morphine's veil. The funeral was a tapestry of neighbors and kin. Eulogies weaving loss with legacy. Evelyn spoke last. Her voice steady as river stone. He taught me silence's weight. But you all, through love's insistence, showed me its release. Afterward. In the kitchen heavy with ham and grief. Lydia pulled me into an embrace. Her whisper fierce. Thank you for holding her when I couldn't. Back in Portland. Fall's palette deepened, maples aflame. Winds carrying whispers of change. Evelyn's art evolved. Series of light-bent rivers. Figures emerging whole from spills. I curated a youth exhibit at the center. Kids' works echoing themes of resilience. Their pride a mirror to our own. One crisp October eve. As leaves carpeted the paths. Evelyn proposed, not with rings, but with a sketch. Us on that Carolina porch. Hands linked. Fireflies orbiting like blessings. Marry me, she said. Kneeling in the leaf litter. Eyes alight. Not despite the spills. But because we turned them to rivers. I pulled her up. Kissing her amid the rustle. Yes, blooming on my tongue like wildflowers after rain. Lydia sent quilt squares, stitched memories for our ceremony. Her hands steadier now. Heart softer. Winter solstice brought the wedding. Small and sacred. Friends circled under evergreens strung with lanterns. The river murmuring vows. Evelyn's dress whispered against mine. Our rings simple bands of river-worn gold. Lydia stood witness. her smile a sunrise after storm. As the officiant pronounced us bound, the crowd's cheers rose like a wave cresting the Willamette's banks. But it was Evelyn's gaze, steady, luminous, that anchored me. We danced under strings of lights that mimicked the fireflies of that fateful meadow, her laughter bubbling free, unshadowed. Lydia watched from a corner, her eyes misty, a handkerchief dabbing at corners that had once held only judgment. In that moment, the circle felt complete, a mandala spun from shards. Honeymoon called us to the Oregon coast, where waves hurled themselves against haystack rock in eternal renewal. We hiked misty trails, hands clasped over roots slick with dew, sharing dreams whispered in the salt wind. A house by the river, Evelyn mused one dawn, toes buried in cool sand, with a studio for me, a garden for you. I envisioned it, basil thriving in raised beds, canvases drying by the hearth, our life a canvas yet to fill. Portland welcomed us back with spring's prodigal return, dogwoods exploding in pink defiance of winter's pall. The apartment brimmed with gifts, quilts from Lydia, pottery from the Center kids, books on queer lineage from friends. We unpacked slowly, savoring the weight of permanence, but beneath it hummed a new undercurrent, Evelyn's restlessness, her sketches turning toward horizons beyond the city. It began with a job offer, a residency in Asheville, North Carolina's mountain embrace, where arts collectives bloomed amid blue ridges. Just 6 months, she said over breakfast, maple syrup pooling like amber tears. A chance to breathe, to create without the city's hum. Asheville, close to her roots, yet buffered by progressive veils, tempted with its blend of Old South and New South, craft breweries and folk festivals under ancient peaks. I tasted hesitation, the old fear of distance dredging up ghosts. And us? Asked. Fork paused midair. Evelyn reached across, her fingers lacing mine. We. Always. You'd visit. I'd commute the miles. It's growth. Riley, not goodbye. Her eyes held the river's bend, promising flow, not fracture. We waited in evening walks, the Willamette reflecting deliberations like a mercurial mirror. Decision came under a full moon, its silver path across the water a sign. Go, I said, pulling her close. We'll bend with it. She left in June, the truck loaded with easels and hopes, our goodbye kiss lingering at the airport like dew on petals. Letters bridged the gap, her scrawled on linen paper scented with pine, mine typed on my laptop amid center chaos. She described Asheville's rhythms, morning fog cloaking the Blue Ridge, afternoon sun gilding galleries where her work hung beside local legends. The mountains hold stories, she wrote, echoes of Cherokee trails and moonshine runners, reminding me of home's layers, ugly and beautiful. I replied with Portland's pulse, kids' murals splashing color on brick walls, pride flags fluttering defiant. But solitude crept in. Nights when the bed felt vast, her absence a cool hollow against my skin. Therapy helped. Sessions unpacking the abandonment echoes from past loves, the racist spills residue and trust soil. Fall found me visiting. The drive a pilgrimage through Virginia's valleys, leaves a riot of crimson and gold. Asheville unfolded like a storybook, Biltmore spires piercing mist, River Arts District's warehouses alive with welder's sparks and potter's wheels. Evelyn met me at a trailhead, her hair windswept, cheeks flushed from hikes. We climbed to craggy gardens, rhododendrons blooming improbable pinks, the vista a breath-stealing sprawl of peaks folding into eternity. Picnics amid boulders became confessions, her residency's thrill laced with homesickness for our shared sink, my center's triumphs shadowed by the quiet apartment. I miss your laugh in the mornings, she admitted. Head on my lap as dusk bruised the sky. This place heals. But it's not whole without you. We made love under stars pricked like firefly points, bodies remembering what Miles tried to forget. Lydia joined us for Thanksgiving. Her hips steadier, spirit lighter. The mountain cabin we rented smelled of cedar and cinnamon, its windows framing fog-veiled ridges. Meals were collaborative, my cornbread, Evelyn's pie. Lydia's stories spun over mulled cider. One evening, by the fire's crackle, she shared a tale from her youth, a forbidden dance with a neighbor girl under harvest moon, hearts racing in the barn's loft. I buried it deep, she confessed, embers glowing in her eyes. But seeing you too, it unearths the girl I silenced. Her vulnerability cracks something in Evelyn, tears tracing firelight paths. We all bury pieces, I said, hand on her knee. Healing's digging them up, letting them breathe. That night, as snow dusted the peaks, we three sat woven in conversation, threads of past and present knotting into future. Winter's grip on Asheville was gentler than Portland's, snowflakes drifting like feathers over French Broad's flow. Evelyn's residency culminated in a show, bends and bindings, canvases capturing mountain curves echoing emotional arcs, spills transmuted to streams, shadows yielding to dawn. I flew down for the opening, the gallery humming with patrons in wool coats, wine glasses clinking sans malice. Her piece for me hung central, us on Haystack's shore, figures intertwined against tidal pull. Titled Tide's Mercy, critics murmured of emotional depth. But Evelyn's whisper in my ear, for the woman who taught me flow, was the true acclaim. Lydia beamed from the crowd, her presence a quiet triumph. Spring 2027 bloomed with decisions, Evelyn's return, our river house hunt yielding a bungalow in Selwood, its yard sloping to the water's edge. Moving day was chaos, boxes tumbling like laughter, friends hauling furniture under May sun. Lydia arrived by train, her suitcase light, arms laden with quilt blocks. For the bed, she said, eyes twinkling, where your stories entwine. The house settled around us like a glove, kitchen island for pie making, studio loft for Evelyn's light-flooded canvases, garden plot where lavender thrived beside heirloom tomatoes. Evenings, we'd sit on the deck, river lapping lullabies, fireflies improbably winking from the reeds. One dusk, as swallows wheeled overhead, Evelyn turned to me, ring glinting. We've been so far, she said. And look, still standing. I kissed her, tasting salt of river and sea, knowing the spiral ascended still. Yet life's currents surprise. Summer brought news. Lydia's diagnosis. A shadow on her lung. Caught early but insistent. We drove south. The highway a familiar vein. Windows down to catch honeysuckle's breath. The farmhouse. Now hers alone. Brimmed with preparations, hospice pamphlets neat on the sideboard. Garden weeded against neglect. Caregiving echoed her hip fracture's vigil. But deepened, chemo days in sterile rooms. Her hand in mine as poisons waged war. Evelyn sketched bedside, capturing her mother's wry smiles, the way sunlight slanted through blinds like grace notes. "You're my anchors," Lydia rasped one afternoon. Monitors beeping soft accompaniment. "In a life of storms, you steadied the ship." Remission came tentative as first light. Scans clear under autumn's harvest moon. Celebration was simple, porch supper. Fireflies returning in force. Their dance a metaphor for persistence. Lydia raised her tea. "To spills that teach us pour," she toasted. Laughter bubbling like the best wines. Portland's holidays glowed brighter. Lydia joining for Hanukkah, my family's tradition adopted. Lax sizzling beside her cornbread. Stories overlapped. Mama's Georgia migrations. Lydia's mountain lore. Evelyn's bridges built from both. In the menorah's flicker, we found constellation, points of light connecting disparate skies. New Year's dawned with snow-glazed bridges. Evelyn and I skating hand in hand, breaths clouding like prayers. "What's next?" she asked, spinning me under street lamps. "More bends," I replied. "More light." The new year unfurled like a river emerging from rapids, smoother but etched with the journey's grooves. Our Selwood home became a haven, walls absorbing laughter and laments, the garden yielding basil bouquets that scented summer suppers. Evelyn's commissions flowed, murals for cafes depicting urban rivers as veins of connection, her brush a conduit for the empathy she'd honed through fire. I expanded the center's programs, partnering with Asheville collectives for virtual workshops, kids' voices bridging coasts like Evelyn's art bridged hearts. One collaboration featured a teen artist, Aaliyah. Her portraits of queer elders raw with reverence, seeing Evelyn mentor her online. Patience incarnate. Swelled my chest with pride. Lydia's remission held. Her visits more frequent, trains to Portland, then flights. Each arrival a triumph over frailty. She took to the garden. Hands in soil unearthing potatoes like buried truths. Her stories now laced with questions. "Tell me more about your mother's songs." Riley, the ones that carried her through. Evenings. We'd sit with cider. Fireflies drawn to the deck light. Her listening a balm to old isolations. Yet under the idol, ripples stirred. Evelyn's dreams turned vivid. Nightmares of tables upturned, wine cascading endless. She'd wake gasping, my arms her harbor, but the spill's echo lingered. A psychic stain. Therapy evolved to couples sessions, our counselor's office a sunlit room overlooking oaks, where we unpacked the symbolism, wine as baptism inverted, a christening in cruelty. "Redemption isn't erasure," the therapist said. Her voice steady as pendulum. "It's integration, the dark hues enriching the whole." We practiced it. Date nights revisiting the farmhouse in memory. Role-playing dialogues with Lydia's ghost self. Laughter emerging from rehearsed tears. One session ended with Evelyn sketching us mid-spill. Figures rising hand in hand. Titled Crimson Grace. Summer solstice brought a pilgrimage, driving south to the original table. Now stored in the farmhouse attic. Dust-cloaked relic. We hauled it to the yard. Scrubbing years under hose spray. Evelyn's hands trembling as suds foamed pink. Lydia joined. Her laughter surprising us all. "Let's paint it," she suggested, fetching oils from Evelyn's kit. Together, we transformed the oak surface, rivers swirling in azure and emerald, fireflies dotted like stars, our hands blending colors into mosaic. That night, supper on the reborn table, fresh greens, cornbread, no wine. Stories circled. Lydia's girlhood dances. My Portland prides. Evelyn's mountain visions. Fireflies orbited. As if summoned. Their glow a chorus to our harmony. Fall deepened with harvest. Lydia's health a steady flame. She confided over phone lines. A memoir brewing. Chapters on blind spots and beacons. Dedicating the first to us. You too, she said. Voice warm as hearth. Showed this old oak how to bend without breaking. Portland's pride swelled grander. Our float a river barge replica. Kids from the center waving banners of stitched quilts. Lydia's blocks sewn in. Marching. Evelyn's hand in mine. I felt the crowd's pulse as collective heartbeat. Love's insistence drowning old silences. Winter whispered changes. Evelyn's pregnancy. Discovered in a clinic's hush. A quiet miracle after years of tentative talks. Our Ben's child, she said. Ultrasound wand tracing the tiny curve. Joy mingled with awe. Fears surfacing in midnight vigils. Would shadows taint this light? We leaned on circles. Mama's visits with lullabies. Lydia's knitted booties arriving weekly. Therapy affirming. Parenting heals as it challenges. Spring birthed the babe under cherry rain. Eleanor Rose. Named for strength and bloom. Her cries a river song. Nursing in the rocker by the window. Evelyn's eyes met mine over downy head. Gratitude a shared breath. Lydia arrived days later. Cradling her granddaughter with reverence. Whispering. A new story starts here, no spills. Only pores of love. Eleanor's first summer was a symphony of small wonders. Chubby fists grasping firefly jars. Gurgles echoing garden birdsong. Evelyn's art paused for motherhood's tide. But sketches returned, portraits of us three. Light filtering through lashes like dawn promises. One August Eve. As cicadas hummed cradle tunes, Lydia shared her manuscript draft over deck tea. Pages chronicled her arc, from veiled barbs to unveiled heart. The wine night as pivot. Your forgiveness, she wrote, was the mirror I needed. Tears fell. But they watered growth, Evelyn's pride swelling. My own healing deepened by her reckoning. Fall's equinox brought community. A center fundraiser. Eleanor's coup's charming donors. Evelyn unveiling a mural of familial rivers, branches converging. No tributaries lost. Lydia read from her draft. Voice steady. Applause a wave of absolution. Winter solstice. Menorah flames danced with Yule logs' glow. Eleanor mesmerized by lights. Vows renewed in candle hush. To bend. Tout pour grâce. To light the dark. Spring's renewal mirrored Eleanor's milestones. First steps on dew-kissed grass. Laughter bubbling like brooks. Lydia's book published quietly. Rivers of Reckoning. Signings in Asheville drawing letters of thanks from readers mirroring her path. Summer's heat wave tested. Lydia's checkup revealing recurrence. A shadow creeping back. We rallied, Portland flights south. Hospice plans woven with hope. Her final months were lucid tapestries. Porch vigils with Eleanor on knee. Stories spun into legacy. Fireflies her constant companions. Passing came gentle as leaf drift. Under harvest moon's watch. Funeral wove mourners from both worlds. Mountain folk and city kin. Eulogies threading her evolution. Evelyn spoke. She bent toward light. Teaching us the grace of flow. Grief's river ran deep. But carried us forward. Fall found us planting a garden bed in her honor, lavender and dogwood. Scents mingling memory. Eleanor's toddles amid blooms became ritual. Her questions. Gamma's flowers? prompting tales of spills turned stories. Winter healed in layers. Therapy for widow's ache in Evelyn's heart. Center groups for my layered loss. Spring birthed resilience. Eleanor's words forming. Evelyn's canvases returning. Rivers of red now blooming wildflowers. Summer solstice. Fireflies swarmed the deck. Eleanor chasing gleams. Evelyn pulled me close. Babe between. She'd say we're the light now. And in their pulse. I saw it. Endless bends. Eternal glow. Eleanor's second birthday dawned with the Willamette's mist lifting like a veil, revealing a world reborn in soft focus. Balloons bobbed from the porch rail, their colors echoing pride flags. While the garden offered strawberries ripe as rubies, her tiny hands stained joyfully red. Friends gathered, Jamal with his guitar strumming bluesy lullabies, Lena sketching caricatures that captured Eleanor's gap-toothed grin. Evelyn and I watched from the kitchen window, her chin on my shoulder, whispering, "Look at her, our little river runner." The year since Lydia's passing had been a quiet forging, grief's hammer shaping us finer. Evelyn's art found new depths. Series titled Echoes in Bloom, where crimson motifs sprouted petals, shadows softened to silhouettes dancing in light. Her Asheville contacts led to a solo exhibit there, pulling us south for the opening, a homecoming laced with bittersweet, the gallery walls holding Lydia's spirit in every curve. I curated a memorial at the center, Threads of Grace, youth works inspired by her memoir, panels embroidered with quotes on forgiveness. Aaliyah's piece, A Quilt of Bent Rivers, hung central, her dedication reading, "For grandmothers who learned to pour love." The unveiling drew tears and toasts. Eleanor's babble a soundtrack of continuity. Fall deepened with routines. Eleanor's preschool finger paints splashed across fridge like abstract maps. Evelyn's dawn sketches by the river. My evenings leading workshops on legacy art. Doubts surfaced rarely now. Ghosts exorcised by time's steady current. But one October night, as leaves skittered like firefly husks, Evelyn confessed over cider. I dream of her still, the spill, the silence. But now, it's followed by light. We hiked the gorge then. Columbia's cliffs towering like sentinels, wind carrying whispers of ancient floods. At Multnomah Falls, mist veiling our faces, she scattered a pinch of Lydia's ashes, saved from the urn, a gesture of release. "Bend with me," Evelyn said. And we did. Arms linked against the roar. Water's power a hymn to persistence. Winter brought snow's hush. Eleanor's first sled run down the backyard hill a squeal of delight. Holidays blended traditions. Mama's lax with Lydia's pie. Stories circling the tree like carols. One eve, Eleanor pointed to a firefly ornament, Lydia's last stitch, asking, "Gamma fly?" Evelyn knelt. Eyes soft. "She's the light inside. Baby." Always glowing. Spring's thaw mirrored internal blooms. Evelyn pregnant again. A surprise announced with a sketch of twin rivers merging. Ultrasounds revealed a boy. Caspian James, C and Everyman. Names evoking flow and foundation. Joy tempered caution. Therapy affirming. Families bend, but don't break when rooted deep. Summer swelled bellies in gardens. Caspian kicking like tidal pulls. Visits to North Carolina became annual. The farmhouse leased to artists. Its porch a canvas for new stories. Eleanor's romps in the meadow summoned fireflies early. Her chases a ritual dance with memory. Labor came under August stars. Caspian born with Evelyn's blue eyes and my curl pattern. his cry a bridge song. Hospital room brimmed with kin, Jamal's bassinet ballads. Mama's whispered blessings. Lydia's quilt draped his bassinet. Threads holding vigil. Fall's harvest welcomed him home. Siblings bond instant, Eleanor's songs. Caspian's gurgles. Evelyn's exhibit in Portland. Doubling the Bend, featured diptychs. Parental silhouettes cradling light-bent forms. Critics hailing the tenderness. One crisp afternoon. Pushing the double stroller along the river path. Evelyn stopped. Leaves crunching underfoot. "We've poured so much," she said. Hand on my arm. "And look, the river's run fuller." I kissed her temple. Tasting autumn's spice. Knowing truth in her words. Winter solstice. Menorah and Yule intertwined. Caspian mesmerized by flames. Eleanor reciting Lydia's tales by heart. Vows exchanged in firelight, to nurture bends, to light each spill. Spring birthed adventures. Family hikes to the coast. Eleanor's shell collections mapping tides. Caspian's first steps on sand. Waves lapping encouragement. Therapy evolved to legacy planning. Wills weaving our stories for the children. Ensuring rivers flow unstemmed. Summer's heat wave passed in shaded picnics. Fireflies drawn to the deck as if summoned. Lydia's birthday. We toasted with sweet tea. Eleanor's drawing. A glowing figure amid blooms, pinned to the fridge. Fall deepened with school starts. Eleanor's kindergarten tales of friendships forged. Caspian's babbles hinting stories untold. Evelyn's mural commission for the center. A wall of intertwined rivers. Figures emerging whole. One eve. As dusk bruised the sky. We sat deckside. Babes asleep within. Fireflies pulsed. A constellation low. The light she gave, Evelyn murmured, lives here, and in their glow. I saw eternities bend endless. Luminous. Yet spirals ascend with whispers of trial. Winter brought Mama's hip fracture. Echoing Lydia's. Pulling us to George's red clay roads. The drive was a meditation. Interstates unspooling like veins. Her farmhouse. Smaller than memory. Welcomed with peach pie and gospel hymns. Caregiving mirrored past vigils. Mama's stories of marches and migrations. My hand steadying her walker. Evelyn charmed with sketches. Children's energy a tonic. Recovery came swifter. Her laugh returning like spring peepers. Spring's renewal found us stronger. Mama visiting Portland. Her tales enriching preschool circles. Eleanor's questions. Nana's river? Prompted family trees drawn in crayon. Summer solstice. Full circle. A gathering at the farmhouse. Kin from coasts converging. Porch supper under stars. Fireflies rioting. Toasts to bends traversed. Lights shared. Fall's palette warmed with exhibits. Evelyn's generations glow. Canvases of multi-hued hands linking across spills. Critics noted the humanism. But for us, it was sacrament. Winter's hush cradled milestones. Caspian's first words, light, under menorah glow. Eleanor's school play. River spirit roll. Drawing applause and tears. One snowy night. Stroller bundled. We walked bridges. City aglow. Our story's just beginning, Evelyn said. Breath clouding. I squeezed her hand. Firefly heart. Endless pour. Eternal light. The bridge walk became ritual. A yearly pilgrimage under winter's crystalline canopy, where the Willamette's dark flow reflected a city's resilient shimmer. Eleanor's mittened hand swung between us, Caspian's carrier strapped to Evelyn's chest. His soft snores a counterpoint to the crunch of snow. To more lights, she'd say. And we'd echo. Voices mingling with the river's murmur. A mantra against encroaching dark. Third spring for Caspian bloomed with dogwood confetti. Eleanor's school projects evolving to family dioramas. Clay rivers curving through painted hills. Figures hand-linked across divides. She presented one at show and tell. Voice piping clear. My moms bent the river together. Like Gamma taught. Classmates saw. Teachers nod. Small victories rippling outward. Evelyn's career crested. A grant for a public installation in Asheville. Firefly forges. Sculptures of bent steel glowing at dusk. Honoring Lydia's arc. We traveled as family. The drive a caravan of snacks and songs. Installation night. Under mountain stars. Eleanor's awe at the lights mirrored our own. Sculptures pulsing like heartbeats. Drawing locals in silent witness. Mama's full recovery inspired her own project. A cookbook blending Georgia soul with Carolina comfort. Bends in the bowl. Recipes arrived scrawled. Each with anecdotes. Collards simmered through storms. Pie crusts kneaded with forgiveness. We tested in the kitchen. Children smudged with flour. Laughter drowning old echoes. Summer's languid heat invited coast escapes. Cabin on the dunes. Waves schooling the kids in rhythm. Eleanor's sandcastles topped with shells like lanterns. Caspian's tidal pool explorations yielding starfish talismans. Evenings by driftwood fires. Evelyn sketched horizons. Her lines capturing the infinite bend. Fall harvest yielded abundance. Center's annual fair. Stalls brimming youth crafts. Evelyn's mural unveiled to fanfare. Aaliyah, now teen mentor, led a panel on art as ancestry, her voice steady, crediting our circle. Lydia's book reissued with foreword by Evelyn, Light from the Poor, sales funding scholarships for queer artists of color. Winter deepened with holidays' warmth, extended kin converging. Mama's lac sizzling beside Lydia's quilt-draped tree. Eleanor's recitals. Caspian's wobbly dances, moments etched like frost patterns, fragile yet enduring. One solstice eve. As flames licked logs, Evelyn pulled a velvet box from her pocket, matching pendants, river stones polished to gleam. For the bends we share, she said, clasping mine at nape. Children fingered theirs. Eyes wide, legacy in miniature. Spring's vigor brought expansion. House edition for studio and playroom. Walls rising like hopes. Construction chaos, hammers echoing. Dust motes dancing became symphony. Eleanor's build songs serenading workers. Summer solstice. Full moon over the deck. Fireflies swarmed unprecedented. As if Lydia orchestrated. We danced barefoot. Babes in arms. Evelyn's whisper. She's here. In the glow. Joy crested. Unshadowed. Yet life's river eddies. Eleanor's schoolyard taunt. Your family weird. Met with her fierce recount. Weird's wonderful. Like rivers bending bright. Home debriefs fortified. Teaching graces pour. Fall's equinox. Caspian's preschool start. Tears at drop-off. Pride at pickup. Evelyn's Asheville return for exhibit maintenance. Solo driver reflection. Journals filled with gratitudes. Bends embraced. Winter's gift. Mama's wedding to a widower. Georgia ceremony blending vows with vines. We attend it. Children flower strewing. Evelyn's toast. To late Ben's. Deeper loves. One bridge walk. Snow falling soft. Eleanor tugged. Mama R. Tell Gamma story. I knelt. Breath clouds mingling. She spilled wine once, but poured light forever. Caspian echoed. Light. Laughter rose. Kira's first thaw. Spring birthed Eleanor's questions on identity. Why two moms? Books and talks wove truths. Love's many forms. River's many paths. Pride parade. Her banner high. Bend proud. Summer's coast idol. Caspian swimming lessons in shallows. Eleanor's surf sketches. Cabin nights. Stars wheeling. Evelyn's lullaby. Follow the firefly home. Fall deepen with grants. My center expansion. Evelyn's residency abroad. Declined for family's flow. Instead, local collab. Youth mural on the spill's symbolism. Crimson to rainbow. Winter solstice. Menorah glow. Caspian lit first candle. For Gamma's light. Stories circled. Bonds unbreakable. Bridge ritual evolved. Family vow. We bend. We glow. Echoed yearly. River witness. Years layered like river silt. Children growing into young currents. Eleanor's teen art echoing Evelyn's. Caspian stories spun like mamas. Visits south. Farmhouse gatherings, artists' tales blending with ours. One summer eve. Deck alight with fireflies. Grandchildren on knees, Eleanor's daughter. Caspian's sun chasing gleams. Evelyn's hand in mine. Silvered hair catching glow. Our river runs on. Dusk deepen. Lights pulsing eternal. In their dance, the spill's shadow fled, leaving only pour of light endless. Healing. Home.